This happened a few weeks ago. I've been a park ranger in the Appalachian Mountains for about a decade now. I know these trails like the back of my hand, or at least I used to think I did. I can't shake the feeling that something's not right lately. Maybe it was the missing hikers that got into my head. I've never stopped thinking about it. It was a clear afternoon when I set out for my patrol. The sun shone through the trees, casting beautiful patterns on the ground. The fresh smell of pine and damp earth hung in the air. I loved my job. The mountains held so much beauty, but today felt different. An uneasy quiet settled around me. The wind didn't rustle the leaves, and there were no birds singing. I was supposed to feel safe out there, but a chill crept down my spine. As I walked deeper into the woods, I stumbled upon a small clearing. That's when I spotted a dirty, tattered backpack half buried in the underbrush. My heart dropped. I knelt down to look inside. There was a journal, pages worn and ripped. I opened it and started reading. The entries were frantic. One hiker wrote about hearing whispers in the trees, about shadows that moved when no one was there. Another wrote about being watched. I felt a shiver run through me. Was this a joke? I heard a rustling behind me and swung around, but nothing was there. The silence felt heavy now. Later, I returned to town feeling uneasy. The locals were whispering about the missing hikers. I heard a story about a hiker who had come down from the mountains, looking pale and terrified. He said something followed him, that it was waiting in the woods. I knocked on a bar door to talk to him, but he was gone. I could only ask the bartender, who just shrugged. People get lost out there. It happens, he said. But I could see the worry in his eyes. The next morning, I decided to follow the same trails again. I felt a knot in my stomach as I walked. I thought about the backpack and the journal. A few hours in, I spotted a figure in the distance. They looked lost. My pulse quickened as I neared. The hiker turned, and I could see their eyes wide and hollow, like they hadn't slept in days. "Are you okay?" I called out. They hesitated before looking right at me. "You shouldn't be here," they said, their voice shaky. "It's not safe." "Where's your group?" I asked. But they shook their head, eyes darting around. Then they whispered, "They're waiting for you too." I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. Who were they talking about? Suddenly, I didn't feel alone anymore. I felt a presence behind me, heavy and lurking, just beyond my line of sight. When I turned back to the hiker, they were gone. I glanced around, heart racing. The woods seemed darker, and the whispers started again. Something was out there, and I had no idea what it wanted. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. The words, "They're waiting for you too," echoed in my mind. I needed to get out of there. I turned and started walking, but every snap of a twig felt like a warning. The tension in the air was suffocating. The forest that once provided comfort now felt like a maze of shadows. I managed to follow the trail back, but my thoughts raced. I kept looking behind me, half expecting to see someone or something emerge from the trees. I didn't stop until I reached the familiar path leading back to the ranger station. Finding solace in my little cabin wasn't as comforting as I hoped. I locked the door and sat at the table, the journal open in front of me. I flipped through the frantic pages again. The same entries, words blurring together. I needed answers. Grabbing my phone, I tried calling the local sheriff. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. Unease washed over me. Then my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "You need to listen. Don't go back." My heart sank. I typed out a response, but my finger hovered over the send button. Who could it be? I decided to put the phone down and grab my flashlight, needing to clear my head. As night fell, shadows crawled across the walls of my cabin. The oppressive quiet from earlier returned, along with the feeling of being watched. I couldn't shake the weight on my chest. I remembered how the hiker had looked terrified, lost. I picked up the flashlight and stepped outside. The beam cut through the darkness like a knife. I walked away from the cabin, taking a few cautious steps down the gravel path towards the woods. I didn't know why I was doing this. It felt like I was being pulled. But then, an unsettling noise echoed from deep in the trees. A faint whisper, weaving through the night. Help! I froze. I hadn't expected to hear anything at all. My breath caught in my throat. The whisper sounded so close, beckoning me to come further in. I hesitated, torn between fear and duty. What if someone needed my help? But then I thought back to the hollow-eyed hiker and their warning. A rustling came from my right and I swung the flashlight in that direction. Nothing. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing mind. The whistle of the wind rustled the leaves overhead, sounding almost like voices. I decided to call out. Hello? Is someone there? Silence. I strained to see through the trees. That's when I caught sight of something, a faint light flickering deeper in the woods. My heart raced anew. Part of me wanted to run back to the safety of my station, but another part urged me forward. I was a ranger. I had to check it out. With steely resolve, I moved toward the flickering light. Then suddenly, it went out. The forest was plunged into darkness. Panic gripped me. I turned to leave, but the whispers intensified, wrapping around me, closing in. I could barely breathe. A chill snaked down my spine. Someone was behind me. I took off, sprinting down the path, branches grabbing at my clothes, the forest alive with disembodied voices and shadows. I didn't look back. I just ran. But as I stumbled out of the trees, breathless and terrified, I didn't feel free. Because I knew deep down, whatever hunted these woods was still out there, and it was waiting for me. The next morning, I woke with a sense of dread that clung to me like fog. I hadn't slept well, and the whispers still echoed in my mind. I thought about the text from the unknown number. Don't go back. I had to know what it meant, but the thought of returning to the woods sent a fresh wave of fear washing over me. Instead, I decided to review the journal again. I needed to connect the dots. Flipping through the pages, I marked every entry that mentioned the lost hikers. Most were vague accounts of strange noises and shadows. But one entry stood out. The date was just a few weeks prior. I saw them, it read. They were never found. My heart raced as I traced the words with my finger. Could the hiker I saw belong to this string of disappearances? Panic surged back through me, filling my throat with a bitter taste. I needed to get to the bottom of this. I grabbed my gear and decided to head into the town to speak with locals. Maybe they could shed light on the stories behind these disappearances. The drive was uneventful, but I felt the air grow heavy as I approached the small diner at the edge of town. I stepped inside, the smell of coffee and grease filling my nostrils. I spotted a few familiar faces, some locals I'd seen during my previous visits. "Morning, Ranger," one of them, Charlie, called out. He waved from his booth in the corner. I made my way over, feeling nervous. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What's eating you?" I hesitated, unsure if I should share my experience. But I needed answers. "Have you heard about any recent disappearances? Hikers going missing?" Charlie furrowed his brow, glancing around as if someone might be eavesdropping. "A few. They say the woods are cursed, you know. Got voices out there." His words sent a chill racing down my spine. "Best to stay away from the deeper parts of the forest." "What do you mean cursed?" I asked, pushing for more. "Just rumors, but folks talk about whispers leading you to." He cut himself off, glancing nervously at the door. Best not to dwell on it. I sensed his reluctance to share more. I pressed him, recounting my experience with the hiker. The look on his face shifted. "You saw someone?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You need to be careful." As I leaned in to get his attention, I caught a glimpse of a figure outside the window. It was a woman, standing at the edge of the parking lot. Her clothes were tattered, her eyes wide and terrified. I blinked, and she was gone. The moment felt surreal, like a mirage. "Did you see that?" I turned back to Charlie, adrenaline surging through me. "See what?" he replied, looking uneasy. I took a breath, my voice shaking. There was a woman outside. Before I could finish, a commotion broke out at the entrance. A man burst through the door, wild-eyed and gasping for breath. "They're coming! They're coming!" he shouted. My heart dropped. Whatever was out there wasn't just waiting anymore. It was here. The man's frantic shout hung in the air, freezing everyone in place. Charlie's face paled, and the other diners exchanged worried glances. My instincts kicked in. I needed to know what he meant. "They're coming?" I asked, forcing the words out. "Who is coming?" The man stumbled toward our table, eyes wide with panic. "The voices. They're drawing them in. The ones who were lost." A chill crawled up my spine. The lost hikers. Were they returning? Were they trapped? I looked at Charlie, who seemed torn between disbelief and fear. The man leaned forward, his face inches from mine. "You need to leave this place. The woods are hungry." I shook my head, trying to make sense of his warning. "What do you mean? Hungry for what?" He opened his mouth to respond, but a sudden sound sliced through the diner. The door swung open, and 3 figures stepped inside. They looked disheveled, clothes torn, and eyes sunken, haunted. My breath caught in my throat. One of them stepped forward, a woman, eyes glazed yet focused on me. "Help us," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You mustn't leave the path." The other diners began to back away, fear etched on their faces. I felt rooted in my seat. I wanted to help, but the weight of dread pressed down on me. "Who are you?" I asked cautiously. "We were looking for something," she replied, her tone eerily calm. "But we lost our way. It's not safe out there." "What are you talking about?" I shot back, hoping for clarity. She hesitated, glancing at the men beside her. "They're trying to take us back. The whispers won't let us leave." The man who had burst in earlier shouted again, "They're already trapped. Don't trust them." A cacophony of voices erupted in the diner, everyone yelling, panic spreading like wildfire. I instinctively moved away from the figures, every part of me screaming to flee. But something compelled me to stay. I needed to know. Then everything went quiet. It was a sudden drop into silence, as if the world held its breath. I looked back at the woman, and for a fleeting moment, I saw something flash in her eyes: an urgency, a plea, a desperation. "Help us," she repeated, stronger this time. "You don't understand, it's all connected." Before I could respond, the diner's lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. I could hear breathing around me, fast, shallow, terrified. Then I felt a cold breeze blow through the room. When the lights returned, the space was empty except for me and the terrified diners. The figures were gone. I struggled to comprehend what had just happened. My heart raced as I scanned the diner. Panic surged anew. Where did they go? I shouted, but no one answered. Charlie stood frozen behind the counter, his face drained of color. "We need to leave," he said, urgency creeping into his voice. "Now." But as I headed for the door, I felt it a pull, a whisper behind me. Stay, and just like that, I knew this wasn't over. I hesitated, caught between Charlie's insistence and that unsettling whisper wrapping around me. My gut told me to run, but the voice was persistent. Something inside me was deeply curious and terrified at the same time. Wait! I shouted, spinning around. Maybe we need to find them. What if we can help? Charlie's eyes widened. Help who? They're gone. We're not going back in there. Did you see the look in her eyes? I insisted. She was scared. What if they're trapped? A sudden crash outside made us both jump. The front door violently swung open again, and the wind howled into the diner. I took a cautious step forward, my heart pounding, but Charlie pulled me back. No! This isn't a game, he exclaimed, his voice shaking. We don't even know who they are. The wind howled again, carrying with it a faint, melodic echo. It sounded almost like laughter, but it twisted into something dreadful. I hardly understood what was happening, but the urgency in my body was seeping in. The ground felt unstable beneath my feet. They're out there. I pointed toward the door. I can feel it. For a moment, the diner was caught in a strange stillness, as if the world paused to listen. A flicker of light drew my attention across the diner, revealing something on the wall. Shapes emerged, shadows that twisted and morphed the faint outlines of the figures from moments ago. Do you see that? I whispered. They're trying to communicate. Charlie shook his head, backing away slowly. We should leave. Now. But while fear jolted my limbs, another urge tethered me to the spot. I felt like I was on the precipice of something I had to discover. With a deep breath, I stepped towards the shadows. We need to know what happened. The air thickened as I approached, and the shadows rippled like smoke. I extended my hand, touching the wall where they danced. The moment my fingers made contact, a rush of images flooded my mind. I saw the woman, her face twisted in terror, lost in dark woods, whispers surrounding her. The two men beside her were pleading as they strained against invisible chains. I gasped, yanking my hand back, heart racing. It was all real. They were trapped, desperately calling for help. Marissa! Charlie shouted, panic lacing his tone. What are you doing? Get back! But before I could respond, the whisper returned, louder this time. Join us! It echoed in my mind, compelling me. And just like that, the walls of the diner seemed to bend, pulling me toward the door I had only moments ago wanted to escape. Charlie, I started, but the ground began to tremble. And that's when the diner didn't feel like it was just a diner anymore. It felt like it was alive. Stay with us. The voice now held a sinister warmth, promising something I couldn't yet grasp. Then, without a moment's notice, the lights flickered out again. This time, there wasn't just silence. There was a sense of anticipation, a tangible feeling that something was about to break apart. And in the dark, I heard the sound of footsteps approaching, deliberate and slow. The footsteps grew louder, cutting through the heaviness of the diner like a knife. My breath hung in the air, each exhale shaking with fear. I glanced at Charlie, his face pale and eyes wide. Marissa! He hissed. Get away from that wall. But I couldn't move. The shadows beckoned me, urging me to stay, and I felt as though something unseen wrapped around my mind, pulling me deeper into the mystery. It was harder to resist than it should have been. Please don't, Charlie begged. We have to leave. Now. Then, as if in response to my indecision, the shadows rippled again. They seemed to pulse, gaining strength and shape until a figure emerged from the darkness. It was a woman, her outline wispy and faint, but her eyes shone with undeniable clarity, filled with both pain and urgency. Help me, she whispered, her voice echoing like a fading song. For a moment, the world around me faded. I saw flashes of her past forest trails, a sudden storm, and echoing screams. She reached out, as if bridging the gap between the living and the lost. My heart raced. I wanted to help her, to understand what she had gone through. "Marissa, no!" Charlie shouted again. His panic pulled me back like a lifeline. But I was losing my grip on reality. Somehow, the woman's plea wrapped itself around my heart. "What do you need?" I found myself asking, almost against my will. The shadows swirled, drawing me closer. The woman nodded as if she understood my hesitation. "The woods they take us," she murmured. "The chains bind us here." Her hand pointed behind the diner, beyond the door, toward that dark void outside. Suddenly, the ground shook harder, sending tremors up my legs. I stumbled back, and Charlie grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the front. "We need to get out now." But something shifted again. The figures on the wall shrieked, their agony palpable as the voices grew louder, overlapping in a cacophony of despair. "Join us! Help us!" they cried. Charlie bolted for the door, dragging me along. My legs felt rooted, unwilling to abandon whatever this was. "Marissa!" he pleaded. Just then, a chilling gust of wind rushed through the diner, slamming the door shut behind us. Darkness wrapped around us like a shroud, and I felt icy fingers creeping up my spine. "Stay with us!" The ground beneath our feet felt alive, thrumming against the tension in the air. I could sense that we were not alone anymore. When I saw it, a flash of light flickered from behind the shadows, and my pulse quickened. A small object glinted on the floor, something shimmering and silver. Was it a key? "What is that?" Charlie asked, glancing over his shoulder. I took a step back toward the wall, feeling drawn to whatever that object was. What did it unlock? And why did I feel this overwhelming need to find out? But before I could bend down to grab it, the shadows stretched out, merging together, and I saw more faces emerge. Each one seemed to reach for me and to pull me toward the door, and my breath hitched. "Marissa, run!" Charlie urged, his voice slicing through the chaos. Then, I heard it again, the unmistakable sound of footsteps, but this time they were not just echoes. They were figures, solid and real, moving toward us. Someone was in the diner. My heart raced as I turned to face the door, the cold chill of fear wrapping around me like a thick fog. The footsteps were clear now, heavy and deliberate, echoing with each powerful stride. I could hardly catch my breath. I felt as if the walls were closing in. "Charlie, we have to," I started, but he cut me off. "No time for talking." He yanked my arm, dragging me away from the ominous shadows and toward the back of the diner. There was a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye, but I couldn't focus. The pull of the figure still stood strong, but Charlie's urgency broke through my trance. We dashed toward the kitchen, the sound of our footsteps blending with the ominous echoes. I could still hear the woman's voice in my mind, soft and pleading. The need to find the silver object burned in me. I knew I shouldn't go back, but curiosity churned in my stomach like a storm. As we reached the kitchen entrance, I caught a glimpse of the flickering light again. My heart sank. "Charlie, wait!" I shouted. I dared to look back, my body frozen as I watched the shimmering object pulse softly against the darkness. "Marissa!" he called from deep within the kitchen, his panic rising like smoke. "Get in here." I felt torn. I hesitated, then took a step back toward the shimmering light on the floor, unable to resist its call. The footsteps echoed through the diner, growing louder, more pronounced, like a living heartbeat. I could see shapes beyond the door, shadows moving swiftly, their presence breathtaking and terrifying all at once. My instincts screamed to run, yet I felt anchored in place. Just then, the door flung open, and a tall figure stepped inside. The dim light illuminated a silhouette, a man in hiking gear, eyes sunken and wild. He looked as if he had just stumbled out of a nightmare. "Help me," he gasped, reaching out toward us, his fingers trembling. "Stay back," Charlie shouted, pulling me closer. "We don't know what he is." The man's eyes darted around, filled with panic. "They're coming. They want me back." Something inside me flickered at his words, a memory stirring in the depths of my mind. The woods, chains it all connected. What was it that haunted these places? Was he another lost soul, like the woman from before? Before I could think further, the atmosphere shifted. The shadows writhed, shifting into grotesque shapes, and suddenly, the walls filled with muffled screams of despair. "Help us! Join us!" they cried. My heart sank as I realized the figures I thought I had only seen in the darkness were now filling the air with their anguish. "Marissa, we need to move!" Charlie screamed, dragging me back. The man lunged toward us, eyes wide with fear. He stumbled into the swirling darkness and vanished, as if the shadows had swallowed him whole. In that moment, I knew I couldn't leave without knowing what that key unlocked. But could I really let go of Charlie and risk whatever madness lay ahead? As I hesitated, the very walls of the diner seemed to pulse with anticipation, and I saw the glimmer of silver shining even brighter as the shadows seemed to beckon me. Something was pulling me deeper into the darkness, a choice lingering heavily in the air. Would I try to seize the key, risking everything, or listen to Charlie and flee? Either way, I felt the weight of the decision closing in around me like a noose. And that's when the lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. I stumbled in the pitch blackness, my instincts screaming for clarity. I reached out, grasping for Charlie, my fingers brushing against his shoulder. "Marissa, we need to get out of here," he whispered, panic threading his voice. I could barely hear the sound of his breath over the dreadful silence that enveloped us. "I can't leave," I said, desperation creeping into my words. "I have to find the silver light." "Are you insane? That's what got us into this mess," he retorted, pulling me toward the exit. The shadows were alive now, whispering and clawing at my resolve. I could feel something shifting around us, a presence lurking just beyond the edges of my vision. "What is this place?" I murmured, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. "Just stay close." Charlie tightened his grip as he led me further back into the kitchen, the air thick with tension. As we moved, the sudden creaking of the diner's old floorboards echoed ominously, disembodied whispers weaving through the darkness. That's when I saw it. A glimmer of silver in the far corner, just beyond the kitchen counter. The flicker of light pulsed rhythmically, beckoning to me like a siren's call. My heart raced, a combination of fear and longing. "Charlie!" I exclaimed, catching a glimpse of his terrified expression. "I have to go." I broke away from his grasp, drawn to the shimmering object, despite his shout of protest. With every step, the whispers grew louder, and I could almost make out their words: "Join us, find the truth." My mind was a chaotic whirlwind, torn between the need for answers and the acute awareness that whatever I was moving toward may very well be a mistake. "Marissa, stop!" Charlie's voice shook, grounded in reality while I spiraled deeper into the unknown. But I pushed on, curiosity overtaking me. As I reached out for the silver object, I felt a sudden cold breeze whip through the kitchen like a wailing siren. The lights above flickered erratically, casting grotesque shadows on the walls, twisting their shapes into horrifying figures. Then, as I grasped the object, a blinding light erupted, pushing back the darkness. For a split second, I glimpsed a vision: a man, shadowy and tormented, trapped within a swirl of gray clouds, chains wrapped around him. I stumbled back, gasping. "Marissa!" Charlie's voice cut through the chaos. I turned to see him standing at the threshold, fear etched across his face. "What did you see?" "Chains, a man," I stammered, trying to make sense of my vision. "I think it's connected to the hikers. They're trapped." Before I could process more, the light dimmed, and the oppressive darkness surged back in, swallowing the shimmering object whole. "We have to get out now," Charlie urged, his grip on reality slipping away. "Wait. I can," but before I could finish, the shadows closed in, and the walls shook with a thunderous roar. It felt as if the very diner was alive, shaking with anger. My heart dropped, filled with dread. That's when I heard a voice, distorted and filled with rage echoing through the air, "You shouldn't have come here." Fear grounded me to the spot, heart racing as new urgency flooded in. I felt exposed, caught between whatever haunted the diner and the secrets I had yet to uncover. "Marissa!" Charlie pulled me back, eyes wide with panic. "We're out of time." The shadows advanced, and I understood. If I didn't act fast, I might not get another chance to unlock the truth behind the silver light. Shadows began to swarm, blurring my vision. I had to decide. Would I risk everything for answers, or would I flee with Charlie into the unknown? Just as I opened my mouth to respond, a deafening crash erupted, and I felt the ground tremble beneath us. The ground shook violently. My feet slipped, and I stumbled sideways, almost losing my balance. Charlie grabbed my arm, steadying me just as a loud crash echoed from somewhere deep within the diner. Sirens blared in my mind, urging me to flee, yet an all-consuming need for the truth held me captive. "Move!" Charlie shouted, pulling me toward the back door, but my gaze remained fixed on the silver light. It was gone, but its pull was still strong, like a magnet calling me to it. "Charlie, wait. We can't just leave." My voice trembled, half-heartedly defiant against his insistence. "No. We have to go, now." His panic was a tangible thing, pushing me to reconsider. But the vision of the man trapped, bound, screaming for freedom lingered in my mind, suffocating me with guilt. The shadows encroached, slithering closer, as if they could sense my hesitation. I thought of the lost hikers, their fates intertwined with whatever darkness clouded this place. A sudden thought pierced my anxiety: maybe the silver light was more than just a lure. It could be the key to understanding what had happened here. "Marissa, we don't have time to play hero." Charlie's voice choked with urgency. "This isn't just some ghost story." I shook my head, drawing in a breath. "I saw something. I need to know more." Then I heard it again, a voice, chilling and close, like fingers creeping along my spine: "You'll regret staying." A cold wave of dread washed over me. Whatever spirits inhabited this diner wanted us gone. Charlie's eyes darted from side to side, desperately searching for an escape. "If you go after it, I'll lose you. We won't make it out." But before I could respond, the floorboards cracked beneath our feet. I didn't need to look back. I felt the overwhelming presence of the shadows closing in, and a feeling of resolve welled up inside me. "No. I can't leave without trying," I said, adrenaline kicking in. "One last chance. I'll find out what this means. I promise I'll come back." "Marissa, don't." His voice trembled, the intensity in his eyes pleading for me to see reason. But I shook my head, breaking free from his grip and stepping toward the kitchen counter. My heart raced as I approached the emptiness. Then, I saw a faint outline of where the silver light had been, glowing softly now. I reached out, feeling a surge of energy course through me as my fingers brushed against the cold surface. Suddenly, the memories came rushing back: the hikers, their strange disappearance, the stories that felt like folklore merging with reality. A fog of confusion surrounded me, pressure mounting. I struggled to focus, but the shadows grew louder, a cacophony of whispers drowning out my thoughts. Names, dates, cries for help. My chest tightened. It was all too much. "Marissa." Charlie's voice was distant, but filled with raw desperation. "Get out." And then I felt it, an icy hand grasping my ankle. Panic surged, and I stumbled backward, falling to the ground. "Charlie!" I screamed, fear igniting as I was pulled. I grabbed onto the counter, clawing for stability. In that instant, my gaze met a figure, half-formed in the shadows, his anguished face twisted with sorrow. I blinked, struggling to comprehend. "Who are you?" I croaked. "You're too late," he whispered, and with that, everything plunged into darkness once more. I gasped, heart pounding. The shadows wove tighter around me as I felt the ground shake again. What did he mean? Was I truly out of time? My breath quickened. I could feel the desperation clawing at my throat. I wasn't just facing the legend of the diner, I was stepping right into its heart, where truths awaited, but so did terror. The walls echoed one last time, "Join us," and then, without warning, the whispers rose to a deafening crescendo. I don't remember what happened next. One moment, there were shadows swirling around me, pulling me in, and the next, the entire diner felt like a tightly wound clock about to spring open. I struggled against the grip, my heart racing, panic clawing at my insides as the cries of the lost and trapped reverberated through my thoughts. "Help us!" The voices pleaded, echoing in a haunting harmony. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from where I had seen the silver light, illuminating the whole room in an unnatural glow like the sun breaking through a stormy sky. I shielded my eyes from its intensity. When the light receded, I found myself sweating and gasping on the floor, the shadows retreating momentarily, as if they were afraid of the light. "Marissa!" Charlie's voice pierced the haze, filled with urgency, tinged with panic. He was crouched beside me, his eyes wide. "You have to get up. We can't stay here." I struggled to regain my breath, to focus. The hikers there's something we're not understanding. I shouted back, my voice hoarse, filled with a mix of confusion and determination. "Forget the hikers." He tried to pull me to my feet, urgency flooding his tone. "If we don't leave now, we're going to be trapped like them." The shadows flickered again, vibrating with anger at our defiance. "It's too late for you," they hissed in a chorus, their voices unified in a dreadful symphony. "Join us, help us." "No, this is not happening," I thought, using every ounce of willpower to break free of the suffocating atmosphere. Thinking quickly, I remembered the silver light. "The key, we have to find the key." "You're still thinking about that?" Charlie exclaimed, desperation spilling into his voice. "It's a trap." But I couldn't doubt it now, not when I felt the weight of those lost souls on my conscience. I looked around the kitchen, heart pounding, seeking answers. The shimmering remnants of the light still glimmered faintly on the ground, beckoning me as I crawled forward. I needed to understand. Needed to find out why. As I grazed my fingertips over the spot where the light last glimmered, I felt an electric charge run through me. The shadows surged, their voices drowning out the normal clamor of the diner. "Leave her. She's ours." "No." I gasped, the strength of their will clashing with my resolve. "Stop. You're hurting them," I shouted. At my words, the shadows coiled tighter around the room, a furious howl rising before me. Breathing hard, I forced my will against the despair. "I want to be drawn in," I shouted, awakening a deeper part of myself, stemming from a place of intuition rather than fear. Suddenly, something shifted within the darkness. The shadows quivered. Were they afraid? "You don't understand," a voice whispered. No, it was a plea, laced with desperation and hope. "We want to be free." As the shadows pulsated with emotion, something within me clicked. I began to see glimpses of those lost souls, entangled in their regrets, their stories. They needed liberation, a way to touch the world beyond their chains. "Tell me what you need." My voice rung out, strong amid the chaos. Silence fell again, heavy as a cloud. Then, I felt it, a warmth growing from the depths of uncertainty, a connection sparked by vulnerability. "Help us, break the chains." At that moment, understanding coursed through me like lightning. Their chains were not merely physical, but memories and burdens anchoring them to this world. I stood taller, my gaze fierce, determined. Then let me help you. No. Charlie grasped my arm tightly. You can't. You don't know what you're inviting. I know we can't leave them behind, I insisted, locking eyes with him. They're a part of the forest, and we can choose to be a part of their story. And then the air shifted again, the vibrations quieted as an almost serene calm enveloped us. In the depths of the whispers, I could hear distinct voices, the stories, the lost hikers, their fears, their pain. Help us, they cried softly, a reflection of their need for acknowledgement. Suddenly, the lights flickered, illuminating the diner's interior. The shadows paused. Intrigued, and I saw the silver light flicker back to life. Compelled, I stepped toward it, clutching Charlie's hand tighter as we moved toward the glimmer. Together, we wrapped our arms around the haunting sound of the voices that echoed in unison. We were forgotten. And in that moment, a powerful surge ignited the air around us, a tide of intent, my heart racing, beating in time with the stories that surrounded us. Then came the decision. Between light and shade, connection and void, would I take that final step toward understanding, letting the light lead us into the unknown? But then, with all the strength I could muster, I whispered firmly, let us help you. The walls trembled once more, shadows swirling around us in a frenzy, but they quieted at my words, almost recognizing the offer. Join us, they urged softly now, voices entwined in a pattern of longing and unresolved desires. The silver light erupted around us, filling the diner with warmth, away from the cold embrace of shadows. Together, we stepped forward, merging with the voices of the lost, breathing life and hope into every corner. But as the light rushed around us, a sudden flicker showed a shroud turning away, a voice calling, the forest remembers, and as I grasped onto that urgency, I felt the diner shudder one last time, uncertainty lingering like a whisper on the wind. The room faded from view, light engulfing me completely, and then I was falling into darkness, leaving behind a question that remained unanswered: did I just set them free, or did I seal my own fate in the process?